In 2012, I set off on a 13-month adventure to cycle and wild camp my way across 2 continents.
Yeah.
I'm Jude Kriwald from London, England. I'm 20 years old and I'm cycling from England to India.
Not gonna make it before sunset, I don't think.
At night, I'd shiver in my sleeping bag as temperatures in my tent dropped to -31. Just 1 month later, I'd sweat waterfalls on the tarmac as temperatures soared to 48 degrees. I was chased by packs of wild dogs, held up at gunpoint, hospitalised with typhoid, stayed in countless strangers' homes, tried foods I'd never heard of, and found a sense of adventure which only the open road can bring.
I wanted to try living on a bicycle. I could meet lots of interesting people, see beautiful remote parts of the world.
Jump! Jump!
It was the best thing I ever did. Fast forward to last year, it's been over 10 years since I completed the epic voyage. I'm 31 years old. I had so many hopes of being an adventurer after that trip, but never pursued them further. I'd lie awake at night asking myself why I wasn't out there adventuring. The truth is, pursuing my dream was just too daunting. I was surrounded by typical career escalators, and their thousands of on-ramps made it impossible not to be sucked in. I was stuck, obsessed by dreams I knew I could achieve, but missing the belief and direction to make it happen. There is a cost to doing or not doing anything in life, and it was my mental health that paid the price. When I returned from India, my friends knew me as the happy-go-lucky guy, but that mindset soon faded, replaced by grey mornings and self-esteem which dropped year after unfulfilling year. I was sure there was no way my partner Nicola would put up with me disappearing to far-flung countries for months at a time. But in the end it was Nicola who provided the spark I needed. "Jude," she said, "for God's sake, go. You've been talking about this as long as I've known you. I'll still be here when you get back. Just don't you dare die out there." Three months later, I found myself in Liberia, West Africa. I was 2 months into my new adventure, a 3-month cycle alone from Senegal to Liberia. I chose West Africa because I knew so little about it and was desperate to rediscover that feeling of wonder that comes from exploring a new land. Whilst I'd enjoyed elements of being on the road once more, something was missing. The true adventure that I'd longed for, the type that I used to dream about in those sleepless nights, it had eluded me. On top of this, I really struggled to connect with the locals in many villages I visited.
My name is Jude.
I'd come to West Africa to meet people who lived vastly different lives to me. But it was perhaps those same differences that made many interactions so hard.
Having an audience watch you sort of make your bed before you've left the bedroom is quite something. Hello.
With just 3 weeks left on my trip, I decided to take matters into my own hands.
I think the honest truth is that I'm not loving it so far. And I think that's probably why I've made up this crazy challenge.
If you look at satellite images of West Africa, you'll see it covered in green. But zoom in further on this northwestern corner of Liberia, where I found myself at that moment, and you'll see a deeper, thicker, luscious green patch hundreds of miles across. This is the Gola rainforest. It straddles the border between Liberia and Sierra Leone and is home to the Kissi, Mendi and Gola tribes. I could see a dirt track that weaved right through the centre of the rainforest, except for a short section where the track disappeared. Why was there no track there? Desperate for a challenge to shake up my mindset, I found myself irresistibly drawn to the wilderness. I decided that I would take the dirt track as far as I could into the heart of the rainforest and attempt to bridge that gap in the road. How thick would the jungle be once the track runs out? Is my route even possible? The uncertainty thrilled me and terrified me in equal measures. I've stocked up. I've got 6 baguettes, 50 biscuits, 4 or 5 dinners worth of pasta and noodles. If I can get through to Fayama, it will mean being at the start, the very northern point of a really long track down to the coast. No tarmac, no electricity, no phone signal, and no guarantee I'd make it through to the other side. As I approached the final village, I asked if there was a path which might lead me further into the jungle.
It's possible. Are you walking by foot? With the bicycle. No.
Unsurprisingly, the track was a dead end. My bike weighed 53 kilos, so with no clear path to cycle on, I'd never make it through. A moment later, the village chief suggested I ask some local men to guide me through the jungle. I was uncomfortable with this at first, but I soon realised it was my only option. And if I carried as much of my own luggage as I could, and paid them fairly, maybe it would work out well for everyone. Fiama was a tiny settlement in the rainforest, where according to my maps, the track south continued. If I could just reach Fiama, I'd have cleared the trackless part of the jungle and be able to complete my 3-month journey. I soon met Kafo and his friends, the young men who would accompany me through the rainforest. The jungle was like no place I'd seen before. The air was clear, yet I could still see only 20 meters in any direction. Beads of sweat ran down my face and dripped off my chin. We made a good pace, scrambling over jungle rivers, lifting my bike over giant fallen trees, and hacking our way through thick overgrowth.
Hold up.
About an hour into the trek, I noticed that Kafo kept running ahead with my bike and one of my bags. You don't have to go very far in the jungle to quickly be out of sight. Disappeared with my bike and handlebar bag. There's all my cash in it. There's zero reason to suspect him. Quite the opposite. But it's a caution in my head I never switch off. The GoPro on my bike, left on by mistake, captured exactly what I'd feared. I haven't realised it yet, but I'm about to be forced into a split-second decision. Do I confront the armed man who has stolen money from me in the middle of the rainforest and who I absolutely need to rely on to get out of here? Or do I pretend that I didn't see it, keep the peace, lose the money, but potentially encourage him to do something even worse?
You open it. You open this. No. I lost some money.
I realised that I had to de-escalate. I needed Kafo to think that I didn't think he just robbed me. Otherwise, he'd likely get defensive and I'd be in big trouble. Never before, not on this trip, nor on any other, had I ever felt so vulnerable. My life is truly in the hands of these two strangers, one of whom was carrying a machete and had just tried to rob me.
Oh yeah, this is my money. It's fine. You take it from here. It's okay, just give it back. When we get to the end, I pay you. No before. Yeah, no problem. It's okay.
Very aware of my vulnerability here. I have no idea where I am. No GPS signal with this canopy. These guys know where they are. They're very friendly, but he does have a machete.
I couldn't be mad at Kafo. Who am I to say I wouldn't have done the same thing in his situation? The scarcity and hardship of rural Liberians had met the unattainable prosperity of the West. Perhaps what happened is just the unavoidable friction of two worlds colliding. We got through the jungle in one piece, and everybody left with more money than they might have, so I had nothing to complain about. I certainly couldn't convince myself that I was less fortunate than Kafo. Deep inside the jungle, we had found a mini oasis, a clearing no bigger than half a football field. As I looked around this tiny settlement of 6 or 7 mud huts, I realised I was safe. I let out the biggest sigh of relief of my life. I was unsure if I should pay the man who had just stolen from me, but ultimately it felt like the right thing to do.
Just made it to Fiama after 3 hours in the jungle. I'm with the chief and his son and another little one. Yeah, quite an experience. Real jungle, you know, there's sometimes a track, sometimes it disappears and the guy's got the machete out. ants latching on, absolute piercing pain, and they just grab onto your toe or your ankle and just, I don't know what it is, they sink into you, but they sink it. This stuff, it's like Velcro. It's so painful. Really glad it was over. And these guys have been advising me which track is better to go south from here.
But I soon learned the way forward would not be as simple as I'd hoped.
This is the road to Jawaje?
Yes.
I go straight.
Straight.
Thank you, my friend. I'll say goodbye. Cheers.
The settlement was truly isolated. Fiamma was meant to be the beginning of the road south to the next village, Jawaje. But this section had been abandoned since the war. You could still trace its vague path, but it's no road. How could my maps be 20 years out of date? There wasn't enough food in this village to sustain another person, and going back the way I came was out of the question. Heading deeper into the jungle to try to find Jawaje was my only option.
Is this even the same way?
Stopped, drank some water, got out of my wet clothes, wrung out my shirt, put the tent up, being very careful to check that there's no ants or anything on all my bags. I put them in, basically not putting anything on the ground that's going in my tent. Yeah, bedding in for a night in the jungle. I've been looking forward to the jungle for ages. I think it hit me a bit quickly, and I took too long, well, whatever. I took a while to remember all the stuff I prepared, like certain clothes and so on. But it feels really good to be safe in here now. And I just about managed to get a satellite message out to Nicola just to say I'm okay, which is really nice. That's a real luxury.
Slept pretty well. I had a dream that a man trampled me in my tent. In the end, I think it was actually a dream about needing the loo, which I was hesitant to do because just opening the tent means things can get in.
2 whole days passed. In that time, I managed just 8 kilometers each day. There was no road. There was no path. At best, there was a vague semblance of where a dirt track had once been, signalled only by the lack of old trees along an opaque line through the jungle.
This is way tougher than I thought it would be.
This old path really is no longer used. The jungle had swallowed it whole, and now I was vanishing too. I hadn't seen another person since saying goodbye to the chief.
Hello?
Cycling was impossible. Even pushing my bike was with grueling feet. Foliage so thick and tall that I often wondered if I was still on the route of the old road or just lost, heading into the jungle abyss. Where the foliage would clear enough to roll my bike alongside me, fallen trees 4 foot thick lay in my path. With my bike and equipment weighing almost as much as me, the act of lifting over 24 such trees each day took its toll on my body.
It's about a 10-foot drop into, oh my god, tree trunks with very sharp bits sticking out.
No use complaining, and no one to complain to. I was in full flow, fully aware of the problems that occurred, but never with a negative emotion attached. Broken equipment, cut limbs, lack of water, ravines with collapsed bridges.
What am I doing?
And still a huge uncertainty as to whether I'd make it through to a real road on the other side.
It's just taken me about 45-50 minutes to go about 200 meters.
Each problem, a challenge to solve. But this is what I came here for, to test my mettle, feel alive and to feel strong, to put myself back into nature. No safety net but my own cunning to keep me alive. This is my idea of freedom. 3 days after leaving Caffo and his friend behind, and the sun was setting on another 12-hour day.
It's less than 2.5 kilometers till the village, which is just so tempting, but I know that could take hours. Just gonna find a way to be content with just being in the jungle again, another night.
Under the canopy, the flora and fauna were blanketed in a thick darkness, but the forest was anything but still. If my estimations were correct, I'd reach Jawaje and hopefully a real track by noon tomorrow. The next morning, I finally reached Jawaje, where word of my arrival had spread.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. How are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, we were expecting you yesterday.
I was too far. I was camping 2 or 3 kilometers. Hello.
Look the children.
After spending 3 days alone in the jungle, I'm overwhelmed by the warm welcome of these strangers and suddenly aware of the deeper connection that I've been missing on this trip.
My name is Jim.
Jim.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, sir. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I still had a 5-day journey ahead of me just to reach a track used by cars, and a further 2 days to reach the hills by the coast, my finish line. The rough terrain and intense heat were unbearable. Squeezing every last drop of motivation from my body and mind became an increasingly impossible challenge.
Today's been the hardest bit. The downhill's almost as slow as the uphills, to be honest. Oh, come on. And I'm trying to keep my morale up because this is pretty tough now. I kind of want to get to civilization. I've got bread for lunch and I've got noodles for dinner and then I'm out. I had everything else.
Every time I thought the hardest part was over, the jungle would push me to limits I didn't know I had.
Fuck. Not sure I can cross there. Gonna make a dash. Got absolutely nothing in my legs. Can't really work out how much of it is how weak I am, tired, versus how hard this road is.
A huge part of me wants to give up, to sit down and stick my thumb out, wait for a ride to get me out of here. But I know that I can't. To give up would break me. The pressure is too huge and the stakes too high. The weight of the last 10 years bears down on me as I simply cannot go back to those dark days. This track is my way out, and suffering the way through. But despite these challenges, I start to approach the final uphill push, and at last a downhill stretch of cyclable road towards the ocean. 3 days later, I arrive at the coast. It's been 13 days since I last showered. The salt water rushes into my cuts. The pain is beautiful, a visceral trophy of my efforts. Waves wash over me. I float weightlessly and stare up at the empty sky. I later found out that I had lost 15% of my body weight, left behind in the rainforest, in clouds of exhausted breath and puddles of persistent sweat. But I'd gained something too, although it took me until that moment to realize it. And what I'd gained is what this story is really about. I realized that courage isn't traipsing my way through rainforests or over mountain passes. I'm in my element in those environments. It's my calling. Is it hard? Yes. But did I really need to be courageous? I don't think so. Courage isn't simply doing the hard thing because you have no other choice. Courage is doing the right thing, specifically when you don't have to. Courage then, for me, started months before I landed in West Africa. Courage for me was finally admitting to myself that deep, deep down, I want to be an adventurer. I want to spend my life adventuring and helping others to do the same. But most importantly, courage was admitting that my mental health was in my own hands and that no one else is going to improve it for me. It required me to admit that my dreams are possible, as it's all too easy to hide behind the excuse that my dreams aren't possible and therefore I needn't try. Or that I should wait for someone else to come and improve my mood and recharge that spring in my step.
For me, I get a really big satisfaction out of pedaling and then seeing the ground move beneath me. and thinking, okay, today I will move myself 100 kilometers and there's a new country around the corner.
Finally, courage is opening up to the people that I care about and telling them that I want to be an adventurer. Why is that so hard? Because once I admit my dream to people, they can see if I succeed or fail. I can no longer hide behind the socially accepted and easily attained career goals and milestones of life that earn me a pat on the back, but leave me feeling empty inside. Instead, no matter how daunting, I now have to go and live that dream of mine.